Just really interested and excited to have this conversation to talk about how sustainability and security and prosperity align. Please join me in welcoming the President of the University of California, President Janet Napolitano.
Hi. Sorry to be a little late. We got stuck on the traffic.
Just right, President Napolitano right here.
Oh.
Thanks. Something about the second person to do that. Thank you so much for being here. And,
it's my pleasure.
I'm just so interested in how your great resume of governorship, Governor of Arizona, Secretary of Homeland Security, now President of the world's greatest university system, the 10-campus University of California system. That's my alma mater, so I get a little bit of Go Bears spirit in there. How you're bringing those together, and one of the ways that's happened, you've been the president since
almost 3 years now.
Almost 3 years now. And one of the things that you did early on was to help shepherd through this climate initiative. It's a carbon neutral initiative, I think it's called.
That's right.
Tell us about what that is, but more equally important, why you did that.
You know, the University of California is a huge institution. It's the largest public research university in the world. It's the best public research university in the world. And some of this comes out of what I learned at Homeland Security. What are some of the meta risks that we need to face on the planet, climate being chief amongst them? And we began to see during my secretaryship issues of climate and sustainability entering the military and the security dialogue of the country. Well, it seemed to me that uniting kind of the intellectual power of the university and all of our campuses and national labs, et cetera, our footprint in California, which is huge, and our obligation to be good stewards of the environment ourselves, that we should set ourselves an audacious goal. And the goal we set, and we did this early in my presidency, was that the University of California would be carbon neutral by the year 2025. That's a lot of change. And so lots of people are focused on this from the research perspective, from how we acquire and manage our own power needs for the university and our laboratories and our hospitals, and how we educate the next generation in terms of what it will take to move our society in this direction. And so we call it our carbon neutral initiative. Doesn't have a fancy name, but there's a lot of work that's underway right now.
Is there a piece of this that also has to do with resilience? Because we're in a state, as you know well, that, what do they call the four seasons? Fires, flood, drought, and earthquakes or something.
They ought to add freeways to that, which is kind of a misnomer, actually, if you've been driving.
Traffic is perennial, but we've got a lot of shocks to the system. There's just normal economic shocks that happen along the way, but we've got climate shocks from drought and such, and lots of others. Does this help set the university up in a way that not only helps develop the technologies or the thought leadership that allows others to withstand that, but also to the university itself to be a more resilient institution?
I think it does, and it provides for us a certain independence, as it were, and really thinking of ourselves both as an energy consumer, but also as kind of a generator of ideas for society writ large. And so many of our efforts are focused only on the university, but they also expand nationally and indeed internationally in this arena, because as the last speaker just noted, this is an intensely international environment, and things like investor predictability and the like will make a huge difference in terms of meeting, say, the goals of the Paris Accords. So, and we were there. I was there in Paris, and we were the first and to date the only institution of higher learning to be part of the coalition that Bill Gates was putting together on the investor side. But all of this wraps together, and so when we talk about carbon neutrality as a university goal, but we're also thinking about climate sustainability. and resilience.
Where does food come into this? You created a global food, it's called the Global Food Initiative.
Yeah.
What's that about, and how does that fit into or is it even a part of the climate thinking that you're going through?
It's like a Venn diagram. It's different, but it also intersects. We believe that uniting we call it the power of 10 campuses with their faculties, their resources, their students and staff, that we can take on and should be taking on some of the world's big challenges. So energy sustainability, I've already mentioned. We also decided to take on the issue of food security because the planet will add another billion people between now and 2025. How do we provide for a sustainable, nutritious food future? One of the areas of intersection is how do you deal with food waste? And how do you use food waste to help you accomplish your carbon neutrality goals? And there's some really great projects underway on our campuses in that regard.
Can you give us an example?
Well, we have a student at Davis who is really looking at some unique ways to convert dining hall food waste, and anyone who's been on a United States campus knows we have a lot. How do we convert that immediately into energy and put it into our own energy supply requirements?
Mm-hmm. One of the things you mentioned, some of the stakeholders, the students and the faculty and so on, it didn't mention communities. And University of California is in, 10 communities, certainly. Some of those are big ones like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Some of them like Irvine or Merced, not so much. What do you see both as the responsibility, but also the opportunity of a university to play a role in its community that supports climate action, resilience, security in all of its many forms?
You know, it's really interesting. There's this old paradigm of universities being ivory towers, kind of islands of academia, totally divorced from the communities in which they exist. We don't accept that paradigm. We believe that in many regards, that communities in California that have grown the fastest and are the most prosperous, not surprisingly, have a university campus right there in the middle. And so that intersection with community, with policymakers, with public utilities, and with others is part of our DNA now. And there's a lot of that kind of outreach underway. One of the things that our faculty produced last fall, for example, we hosted at UC San Diego a big climate summit for California. The governor spoke, others spoke. And the faculty produced a booklet called 10 Scalable, Bending the Curve, 10 Scalable Solutions. All things that are data-based, evidence-based kind of strategies and tactics for how you move from a goal of trying to get to less reliance on fossil fuel, carbon neutrality, and the like. Well, how do you move along that curve and do it quickly? What are the tactics that can be deployed?
I would imagine that procurement is one piece of that, and particularly in some smaller communities, Merced is the one that comes to mind, that the University of California has to be one of, if not the biggest economic engine in that community.
Sure.
Isn't there potential, or is there potential, and are you leveraging that to help grow scale and markets for regenerative agriculture or for smart buildings or any other, obviously, renewable energy technologies? How do you think about that?
Yeah, we do, in a lot of ways. And I'm glad you mentioned things like building architecture and the like, because anytime in this country we are investing in infrastructure, we need to be thinking about climate and sustainability at the same time. And that also ties into resilience. What kinds of materials are used, where you locate things, all of that needs to be taken into consideration. It's a very different type of public procurement than we had even 15 years ago or so when I was serving as a state governor.
I would imagine, I'm curious what happens when you get together with your fellow university presidents, whether from outside of California or nationally, whether public universities like the University of California, some of the many wonderful private universities. Do they compare notes on, is this an issue among universities where they talk about climate, about sustainability, about the potential both as a threat multiplier, risk, but also as an opportunity in the education system?
You know, that's interesting. In the meetings I've attended, I think the University of California is the only institution of our type that has just taken this on front and center. Not to say that other institutions aren't doing things as individual campuses, and everybody talks about renewable energy and also energy efficiency, because we're all interested in lowering our costs. And I can tell you precisely, we pencil out how much we are saving and by using different energy efficiency tactics. But no system, to my knowledge, has basically said we are going to strive to be carbon neutral, and we're going to really marshal our resources and focus them in the right way to achieve that goal. We are the 4th largest employer in California. The University of California, it's a huge deal. The budget of the University of California is over 3 times the budget of the state of Arizona, where I was a governor. To give you, if we were a state, we'd probably be about the 15th largest state just by ourselves. And so I think just because of breadth and depth and size, we can do things. And then, as you mentioned, that intersection with the communities in which we are and with the state of California, which has its own ambitious climate goals.
I want to see if we can get in a question in a minute, Elaine, but you purchased or built, I guess, purchased your own utility, the university system.
We did.
What is that? Why?
Well, we did. We, like I said, we're a big user. We're a huge consumer, as it were, and we're very interested in containing costs and doing it in an environmentally responsible way. So we purchased our own utility. It supplies power to a number of our campuses. We made the largest purchase. We bought 2 solar farms outside of Fresno, 80 megawatts ultimately to be generated from there. So we're looking at renewables. You know, we're doing a lot of natural gas, and a concern I have, and I think we should be thinking about, is how do we make sure that natural gas is not the end game, that it's just a bridge to new technologies and a new way of using energy, not a kind of a cul-de-sac. So I am and we are very cautious of that, even though we are using more natural gas.
Elaine, do we have a question from the audience?
Yeah, so we have a question about how you're integrating the carbon neutrality goal within the UC curriculums.
Right, so a number of different ways. First of all, our students are intensely interested. They're intensely interested in solving world problems. They may not be all that interested in the American political system, particularly now, but they want to take
something going on that I didn't know about?
They want to take on big issues, big challenges, and so things like sustainability, climate, food security, the like. There's intense student interest. So there are new majors that have been developed, very multi and disciplinary. We're getting ready, driven by the primary author of the Bending the Curve 10 Scalable Solutions report, to offer a system-wide set of classes in this area. Students can pick and choose, but there are waiting lines to get into many of these kinds of classes.
So tell me a little story about where this goes in the next 2 or 3 years, and the story you like to be able to tell about the University of California at, say, 2020.
Well, by 2020, we will have built out our newest campus, Merced. So we're...
That's not done. It's open, but it's still...
It's not done. We have about 6,500 students there. By 2020, we intend to have 10,000. We will grow from that point, and we just let the major contract for the build-out of the Merced campus. So it's the first research university to be built in the United States in this century. It's a huge opportunity to use some of these things we've learned, and to, from the get-go, from the moment a stake is put in the ground, to be thinking about all of the factors that go into sustainability, be it the kinds of materials we use, the architecture, the footprint placement of where things go, the access to renewable energy and renewable energy supplies. all of that kind of integrated into the physical architecture of the campus. And one of the major curricular themes of the undergraduate curriculum at Merced will be focused exactly in this area.
And so, and what does that's one campus with one very much leadership initiative. What does that get you in terms of the rest of the campus and the rest of the 2020 story and vision?
Well, what I envision is as we build new buildings and renovate old ones, and we're trying to do both, we certainly could use a little help on that from the state, but I'll leave that for another discussion. But even as we do that, given our audacious goal, carbon neutral, et cetera, these kinds of thoughts need to be integrated into everything that we do. And fortunately, we have throughout the system world leaders in kind of thinking through how do you go from a goal like that to all of the implementation steps that need to occur. And we have a UC Climate Council, basically, that is comprised of members from faculty and staff throughout the system. And they help make recommendations to the chancellors, to me, to the regents, about what we need to do and what we need to invest in.
You said you need a little help from the state, wouldn't hurt. Real quickly, what help do you need from the private sector?
Well, I think I liked the comment made by the previous panel about reducing costs and rewarding utilities for reducing costs instead of selling more energy. I think we need to intersect more in terms of using predictive analytics on the grids, for example, and deploying technologies that we are developing and have at the university, but putting those out into the private market. I think that there are real opportunities for thinking collectively, not just locally, but regionally and across traditional grids and utility setups about the overall energy security that we have and its sustainability.
Well, be careful what you wish for, because we've got a room full of some of the coolest, most efficient, cutting-edge, clean technologies, and so you may hear from some of them before it's all over. But
that would be great, actually.
Great. Well, as I said, be careful what you wish for.
And there needs to be porosity, what I call porosity. Porosity of ideas and developments from the private sector to the university, and porosity of the things that we are developing to the private sector. And managing that porosity in the right way is something that we need to be thinking about and acknowledging that we will be better together than independently.
Well, thank you for that thought, and thank you for being here. But most important, thank you for your leadership in this job and the previous jobs, and really showing the way of how sustainability and security and prosperity go hand in hand. Please join me in thanking President Janet Napolitano.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Really pleasure. Thank you.